Okay, Phil Steele,
Hello.
thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You're working in a super interesting field. I first heard your name when we had Frankie on the other week.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of emphasis on physical health, physical diets. People are just starting to talk about mind health a little bit more. It's coming more into the conversation now, and even like mind diets. So it's great to have you on, mate, and talk about it. So what's your? It's a business that you run now.
Yeah.
What are you sort of doing day to day? What's your main thing? Is it mainly sports psychology or?
So I set up my business, themindpt, because I thought there's a bit of a gap in the market because everyone's got physical PTs, but arguably the mind's more important. The mind's like the computer, the body's like the engine, isn't it? So what I basically do is I have a mixture of sort of everyday issue type clients from like addiction, anxiety, phobias, weight loss, etc., to them working luckily with some of the top sportsmen like boxers and Olympians and footballers. And the way I do that basically is I'm a qualified psychologist, but also I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. So it's good. I've got like a bit of a foot in both camps really.
Okay.
So that's basically my day job, doing that and trying to uplift people on Instagram, as you've probably seen as well.
Yeah. Motivational quotes.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. So are people coming to you and saying like, is this normal stuff like I've got this problem, I'm eating too much, or I need to quit smoking? Yeah,
basically, I believe that all of us are sort of constrained by what we believe in ourselves, our identity. So your identity is formed when you're younger. So I was talking to a client about this before, because if you think about it, right, say you had twin boys, yeah, and at the age of 5 you took one way and you took one the other, and the first one was fed like fruit and veg, and he learned how to exercise and he learned how to look after himself and stuff like that. When he's 18 he'd be in good shape, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
If you took the other one and you fed him like KFC, Mackey's, chippy food, sat him in front of the telly, he'd be in bad physical shape by the age he's 18. But it's the same with the things we're told in the mind. So if you think about it, probably through no fault of their own, our parents, our teachers have given us limiting beliefs, i.e. you're not tall enough to be able to do that, or you're not smart enough to go to uni, or you'll never be able to make anything in your life.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, as we get older, that turns into our voice in our head. We have them limiting beliefs, and from that we get things like bad habits, like being addicted to sugar, or hitting the self-destruct button because we think we don't deserve to be happy, and various stuff like that. So the people I see, it's about unraveling that and reframing their life so they have better choices and so they can make better choices. But you know what, I'm called a mind PT. I could actually call myself a midwife, not because I deliver babies, like, oh no, but because without being cheesy and American, change comes within, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like me getting someone in a chair in front of me and showing them, actually, do you know what, you have got the resources in your head to not have that addiction, or you have had experiences which mean you shouldn't have low self-esteem. That's what I do basically, and if I could do it for free I'd love to, but it's sort of one of them things where I'll talk about it a bit more, but there's this thing called perceived authority in psychology.
Yeah. So
you've got to make sure that when you do get someone in that environment to make them change, you've got to put a few things in place so that they'll actually buy into any real change. So yeah, it is a good job. Like,
what at the moment? Then what's the most common thing people are presenting to you when they come and see you? Like, what's the biggest theme that reoccurs with like an issues?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, it is generally self-esteem related. I always think everything is probably boiling down to some form of anxiety. Because everyone does have anxiety. It's just some people it overpowers them. Phobia wise though, people always want to know about phobias. Probably the most common phobia now in the UK is being on the motorway and like freezing and not being able to drive and not knowing what to do, getting stuck on a motorway. Seriously.
Okay.
It's like a control thing.
I thought it would have been putting a picture up and getting 0 likes.
No. Well, that could be might write that down actually. Have it for that. But yeah, no, it's this loss of control, and it's generally people who are around the ages of like 35 upwards, because what you usually find with males and females from that age, they're either married with kids and they feel unfulfilled because of that, or they're unmarried without kids and they feel unfulfilled because of that. And so it manifests itself as these sort of we'll call them irrational phobias and fears of, oh my God, what if I'm driving on the M6 and suddenly I break down and I can't move back. But commonly, yeah, it's probably anxiety related.
Right.
It's crazy how if you allow it to, the mind will eat itself.
Yeah.
You know, there's some insecurity even that was like, you just mentioned there about someone who's being brought up and something's being drilled into them by the parents, because when you're a child, you only know what you know.
Yeah.
But then you might be fine. You might have a very sociable, teenage years. You might go to college, uni, do well, succeed in your job, succeed in your social circles. But then later in life, something could just creep up on you.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, so if we're talking about how the brain works, in your brain, you've got a thing called the cortex. And the cortex is very logic-based. And attached to the cortex are the amygdala. So yourself or your viewers might have heard the amygdala. There's actually 2 in your brain. And how it works is, a trigger, a stimulus comes through your 5 senses, i.e. something you touch, you smell, you taste, etc. And it'll go to the cortex. And the cortex very quickly will say, how should we respond to this? And because it's only logic-based, it'll often go to the amygdala and say, okay, have we ever dealt with anything like this before? So when you have trauma, it stays around the amygdala. So the bad thing that what happens is, goes to the cortex, goes to the amygdala goes, yeah, we don't like this. And then you're filled with like negative chemicals, negative hormones, and you go into the fight or flight. So one technique that I use called EMDR, which is fascinating. It's where basically you shine a light in their eyes. A lot of science behind it. It's a bit of a new technique. It actually moves the neurons associated with the trauma to the logical part. So let me give you a good example. And as I was saying off air, ethically, I can talk about clients I've treated without giving away their identity, unless they give a testimonial. So this guy, he's a great guy. He's become a bit of a friend now. And he used to work in the security forces. And he was in the army, then he was working as private security in Afghan and Iraq. And one day he was at a compound, and it was his day off. And a suicide attack happened. Missile right through his window. As it's gone through his window, panic station, so he's come out, and I'm not sure if it was the client he was looking after or it was actually his friend. Face falling off. So he's gone to him and he's held his face back on, and he's managed to get out in an armoured vehicle. Now, that gave him PTSD, post-traumatic stress. So after the army, he's got a very successful career now. He's gone on and he's tried all these different therapy types, CBT, counselling, etc, etc. Nothing was hitting the spot. Came to me. First session we used traditional hypnosis, and I could see there's a bit of a barrier. I could see in his head he's thinking this is going to be the same old shit. Second session, all right, come on, did the EMDR. Within the matter of minutes, PTSD gone for good.
Wow.
No, it wasn't me, it was the technique in him. And that's like the power, because the thing with the brain is as well, without going off on a tangent, the brain's so lazy. It's like a lazy dog.
Because it wants to be super efficient, as efficient as possible. Yeah.
And that's why I get stuck in negative thinking loops.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you know what, I'm going to eat dead healthy, I'm going to go on a diet. A week later, you're back having your chippy thing. Because it's stuck in that loop. So when you do a little hack like that with the light and a few other little things, it's basically rewiring your brain and how you respond. So he still remembers the attack, but now it hasn't got the emotive element to it.
The negative connotations.
Yeah.
So was he basically saying to you that image of the guy's face hanging off was like almost stained on his mind?
Yeah, it's more, well, PTSD is a very complex issue, because it might not so much be an image, it might just be a feeling, it might be a noise. I mean, if you think about a lot of guys who come back from active duty, you know, shit, what the fuck was that? Or a smell.
Yeah.
And recognise that smell, and they'll go into a bit of fight or flight. So for him, it was a mixture of things. And, you know, this guy, he's actually, he's become a very good friend. He's actually come and I've taught him these techniques. So he can do all these things now. You know what I mean? And he wants to, we're working on a concept to go and take this and work with ex-soldiers and help them integrate back into society as well.
You read about, like, lads who've been on tours of Iraq and Afghan, and like a car will backfire, and as you say, their fight or flight will fire.
Yeah. And
they're just crippled with just either inactivity, or they'll look like crazy because they'll be diving on the floor, you know, trying to get a defensive position, and it's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, and then after that, they'll be like, fuck, why was I doing that? And they'll
Yeah.
beat themselves up about
Yeah.
acting silly in a public space or whatever.
You know what? Like I've had a few ex-soldiers, and you know what the interesting thing is? As I think about it now, all of them are really successful now in business, like
Really?
massively successful. Yeah, but they'll all share snippets. Like, so one guy, what he used to do is when he was out on active duty, he'd go and have a break, and he'd have little huts or whatever, and he'd take the magazine out of his gun and he'd put it in his mouth and fire it. And to me, that's self-harm. That's a form of self-harm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's his way of sort of dealing and escaping with something. So they are very interesting guys. And the other thing with soldiers, what we forget is they're trained to be killers. And when they integrate back into society, they have to nullify those instincts. So, you know, one of them told me about, like, there'll be people who've served in Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, and they'll come back into Civvy Street, as they call it, and they'll be waiting for the bus, and the bus is 5 minutes late, and then they get on and they give the driver like a fucking mouthful. Because in the army, you can't do anything, like, can you?
Yeah, everything's discipline, innit?
Yeah.
I suppose as well, it must be so hard to get used to the fact that the stakes aren't as high as, like, it's not life or death. So when you're on, as you say, Civvy Street, if you like, it must be weird to adjust to things just being a level of mundanity. Well, not mundanity, but normality.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it might be an issue, is like that adrenaline high, because a lot of people, like, I'm a journalist, and a lot of war correspondents get addicted to the adrenaline of it, and it's something they find very, very difficult to come away from, because coming back and reporting on general news or whatever it is doesn't give them that same high. So they go back into really dangerous situations, and sometimes you know costing their lives. But
It's almost like it's like chasing a high, isn't it?
yeah,
And then they get more and more dangerous and more take more and more risks.
It goes back to what we were saying at the start about, like, so I was talking about how you get conditioned by your beliefs as you grow up, but as you get older, you also get conditioned by your learned behaviour. So yeah, for those war correspondents, their learned behaviour is to be reporting in a war zone. So when they get back and they've got to go and stand outside and say something about Boris Johnson,
yeah,
I nearly swore then, Boris Johnson, they haven't got that buzz anymore. But we do that ourselves. So let me give you another example. So a guy who come to me, and he's got like a bit of an addiction to gambling, and he can stop gambling for a long time, and his life can be great and everything's great at home with his missus and his business is fine, and then bam, he'll hit the self-destruct. And the reason is he's got a learned behaviour of being in the doghouse with his wife for blowing all the money. He's got a learned behaviour of being lost because he's got no money. He's used to those feelings. His body, his brain's used to them. So what often happens with addiction is it takes a while to finally get away from that. Or like, you know, a drug addiction, the benders will still happen, but they'll get less and less, and the gap will get fewer and far between. But going back to your point there, about like, you know, getting back to normality for soldiers. It's the same with sportsmen, isn't it? Because, like, you'll know through your work, with footballers, once their career ends, the divorce rate shoots up.
yeah,
The top footballers don't know how to set up a direct debit.
yeah.
Don't even know what one is. Wouldn't know how to get a phone contract. And a lot of them miss the limelight of, you know, being in a bar and someone coming over and going, can I have a picture and stuff like that. And that's the other side of work, which I love and I'm made up about, is because I love sport, working with some sports people.
There's that structure to the week as well, isn't it? Even the fact that as like peak athletes, preparing everything around a certain set piece of a Saturday or a Sunday, and you spike and you get that, you know, major, whether it's affirmation or it's a challenging circumstance if you lose, but either way, your week's got that structure, and then it's back into the cycle of preparing again, and then all of a sudden, when you're actually still in normative terms, like in your prime, it's over.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what? And if you've been doing that since if you came to an academy, or you've been playing since you were even a bit older, like 15, 16, they only know that.
Yeah.
It must be an absolute mindfuck, mustn't it?
And, you know, you've got the guys, the elite, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5% who played in the Premier League and got maybe a bit of a nest egg to come out to. Not that money makes things easier. But then you've got some other guys who maybe have played like League 1, League 2, who've then got to go and get jobs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and, you know, the chasing. So like the film The Wrestler.
Yeah.
Love that film.
Boss film, yeah.
And you know what, I'll say this because you won't mind, but I know you had Frankie Allen on, and when I first met him, we just clicked. And we got talking, and I remember saying to him, because I'd heard of his name before, and I love Google, bit of Googling all about him later on. And I said, Frankie, have you seen the film The Wrestler? And he went, yeah. I went, that's you, innit?
Mickey Rourke off that, yeah.
Because I was like, well, I was like, because Frankie, you're so talented. For whatever reason, you didn't get the breaks you deserved, and now here you are now, getting a bit of reward and a bit of success. I just hope he doesn't throw himself off the top rope, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, look at Mickey Rourke now.
Yeah.
And he's do you know, he's just put on Insta last week, he's going to have 2 more fights.
Is he, yeah?
What? Mickey Rourke?
Mate, he's in shape, by the way.
As good shape as Nigel Benn now.
55.
Yeah, he's coming back as well.
No.
Ridiculous.
My favourite boxer,
Yeah,
Ben.
Ben's just got it though, mate. I think he'll do alright, you know.
Yeah. Good opponent though as well.
Yeah, former world champion, isn't he?
Yeah.
Psycho.
And he only...
How old is he then? Ben's 55.
40, yeah, he's fighting 42, 40 odd.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
He only stopped fighting 2 years ago, didn't he? So it's not just like... I don't think it's a vanity project. I think it's like he's come back. A bit like when Hatton came back. I know the gap was much shorter, but Hatton took on a difficult opponent, didn't he?
He did, but also, like, Hatton never stayed in shape.
No.
He made almost a brand of, like, you know, being the fat guy. I was a fat guy.
Or one of the lads,
one of the lads.
Benders in
He
between.
full Englishes, going benders. Whereas I think Nigel Benn, especially with his son, he strikes me as somebody who's probably never really strayed that far from decent
trains
shape.
twice a day, apparently.
And he's got his other son fight as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Have you ever read Ben's autobiography?
No.
And what a tale of redemption. So this is a guy who, in his prime, had addictions, you know, was always cheating on his wife, you know, was living a party lifestyle.
Was he?
Yeah, you know, lived with some, you know, hanging around with like Essex boys type people.
Yeah.
And then I think that the catalyst for him was, I think someone broke into his mansion in London and got over the fence, and I think he had him pinned down. And I don't know if he had some message or something from God there, which suddenly, you know, he realised all the harm he was doing. So he's sober, and he's gone over to Australia, hasn't he? And just must have refound the love and the passion. But yeah, great shape.
Do you think he should be allowed to box at 55? You know, ethically and medically? Because I know it was Bieber, not the BBOC BBOC that sanctioned it. So there's obviously an issue there. Now they're talking about having like ringside medics and more than you would for a normal fight. I don't know. As I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking, well, if he's fit enough, why shouldn't he?
So you're talking about maybe because he's a bit older, they wear the helmets or something like that?
No, I mean, there's going to be an extra level of like medical scrutiny and support ringside, just because I'm very far from sports scientist, but I think he might be more vulnerable. I mean, as fit as he can be, his reflexes might be slower, so he might get caught with a heavier shot.
I think as long, you know, if they've got tests that they've put in that have met whatever standard are needed and he passes them, then
he's smashed them all apparently.
And I mean, you know, let's be realistic. Who's to say he can't go on and win a title somehow? You never know.
The thing is though, 55 isn't 55 anymore.
It's not, mate.
Like think about we growing up in the 90s.
Yeah, that was an
I don't know how old you are, sorry, but yeah, it was an alpha.
Yeah.
Or like on the way.
55 now, like it's not that old.
Listen,
it's not.
I'm 34 now.
Yeah,
and I think in my head, when I was 18, I'd think of 34-year-olds, like, over the hill, you know what I mean? I'm trying to keep hold of my youth, do you know what I mean? But
taking resveratrol and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's not that old anymore, 55. No. You look at, like, the shape of, like, people like Joe Rogan and that. And
oh, yeah, he's 52.
He's 50s.
Yeah. Brad Pitt's 50.
Yeah, he's in shape, by the way.
Yeah.
The other thing with Ben, though, is what you've got to think about as well, because I actually have a theory with anyone who's really talented in their field. I actually think there's something about their minds that's different. Yeah. So with Ben, we're talking about someone who was a world champion. We're not talking to someone who had like a middle of the road career who's coming back out. We're talking about an elite performer. And if you look at like, so obviously some of the boxers that I've spent time with in the Olympians, I can tell you from, I must have had over 1,000 clients. Their brains are different. Their brains are wide different, definitely. And you must see that maybe with some of the footballers you interact with, maybe not with some of them, but you know what I mean? Some of them are like just a different level, aren't they?
Yeah, I wouldn't know them in the depth that you would know them as a, you know, a sort of like a psychologist and helping them that way, but certainly everyone's different and yeah. There's a way of like that. Obviously, they get trained to talk to the media, but
Yeah.
once you get underneath that and get to know them as like just normal fellows and human beings, it's you realise those differences. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Underneath the cliches,
Yeah.
just like normal fellas. But I wanted to ask as well: have you read The Chimp Paradox?
I haven't read it, but I'm aware of it.
You're aware because when you were talking about the amygdala, then it was like it just. I've read it. It's really good. Do you want it?
No, I'm reading another one at the moment. Have you heard of a guy called Daniel Levitin?
No.
He's a neuroscientist, and he talks about like his books. The book that I'm reading of his is called something about information overload, and he's talking about the amount of information that we're privy to now compared to say 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that we're evolving at a certain pace, but the information is growing at a ridiculous pace.
Faster
and
than we're
way
able to process
faster.
it.
Like and he's talking about how to deal with it. Yeah, but it's super interesting.
Interesting you say that, because I've been looking this week at a thing called like cognitive bias, and there's a few different types of cognitive bias. There's one called the Kruger effect, which is where you actually think you're much better at something than you are, or you know a lot more about something than you do. So I mean, you know, imagine like that's a flat pack wardrobe, and us three get together tonight and build that flat pack wardrobe, and then I go home and say to the missus, do you know what, I can do that now. Have you got that bookcase you want me to put up? And then halfway through I'm like, I can't do it. But a lot of people have that belief where they think they're better at something, and that's one reason people procrastinate. Or one, people have a job, people have a job interview and they wait till the night before, and then they're like, oh, do you know what, I've had loads of job interviews, I'll be fine. And they get in there and they're just like, so that's a Kruger effect. But
also, it's not a helpful thing then.
No, not at all. It's something. There's something Kruger effect.
Kruger, as in like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
but it's an element of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Cognitive bias. So cognitive bias just means when you've got something that cognitively is making you biased against something. So another example would be, let's think, relative deprivation. Relative deprivation is a good one. So relative deprivation is this concept of, do you know what? It's so easy for them. You know, if I had their life, if I had their home life, and if I had had their education, I'd be as successful as them. It's apportion and blame. So one thing I learned early on, and if there's anyone watching this who's got their own business, I know you said you've got your own business, and it'll apply to yourself as well, mate, is unfortunately, when you start doing something that's a bit different than the norm, sadly, some people around you secretly want you to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there'll be people watching this. I know there's a lot of people like in Merseyside now who've got like holistic businesses like Reiki and aromatherapy and stuff like that. And periodically on Instagram, they'll put a post up saying like, you'll buy Beyonce's CD and you'll go and watch the latest Brad Pitt film, but you won't support your mates and all that. I don't do any of that crap.
Or something about haters or something about jealousy.
Yeah, but I can see where they're coming from, because the thing is, naturally as humans, we find it hard to change. So if you think about it, someone goes out and starts their own business, I don't know, selling weed killer. It's a bit weird. Why don't you just work in the factory like everyone else? You know, good luck, I want you to do well. But they want you to do well, but not better than most people. And a bit of jealousy comes from it. And that's a bit in part of relative deprivation. Well, do you know what? If I'd have been able to go to private school, I could sell weed killer. And that's why I love it when you meet people like Jazza Dickens, for example, a boxer, who, if you talk to him about his life story, came from like the most difficult upbringing, and now he's one of the top, UK boxers, and he's got a belt, and he's the most friendliest guy going. And you could look at his upbringing, and you could look at anyone else who slags people off who are successful or whatever, and say, well, you know what I mean? He probably had it harder than you.
And with Jazza, there's not a shred of self-pity, is there?
No.
And the shit he's been through as well with his parents and stuff.
But you talked before about adversity.
Yeah.
We're talking about soldiers and stuff.
Yeah.
And you said that they, pretty much all of those guys who've been through crazy shit that we couldn't even comprehend, are now successful business people. So there's obviously there's a lot to be said, isn't there, for going through adversity and it building your mental strength.
Definitely. And I think it's what you do with the adversity. So there's an interesting model that I've stumbled across lately, which is called, well, I call it the ABCD model. It's probably got a proper name, but it's easy to remember. It's not anything to do with the Jackson 5 or anything. But basically, adversity hits you, your learned behaviours come out, and it leads to consequences. So let's say, for example, we're working for Mercedes, and we're designing a new Mercedes car us free, and you get tasked with coming up with what the interior looks like. So, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do a bit of design. And so you go home, you work late every night, you sacrifice family meals, etc. And you come in and you present to the whole boardroom and all the staff this car that you've designed. And halfway through, you're made up, and then someone puts their hand up and goes, why have you picked that colour? It's a bit of a strange colour, isn't it? And you sit down. The adversity is that feedback, that negative feedback. The learned behaviours kick in. Oh my God, I'm stupid. I'm crap at designing. I'm never going to present to anyone again. And the consequence is you might go home and have 2 bottles of wine, or you might go home and self-harm or something. So the D is the disruption, and this is a critical element. So if anyone's watching this and can understand this, the D is where as soon as those learned behaviours come in, you disrupt them with a thought pattern. So let's go through the same scenario. You've stood up, you've presented this car, someone's put their hand up and said, that's a bit of a weird colour. You sit down, and then the learned behaviours should, before they come in, you go, well, hang on a minute. Has anyone ever challenged me over the colours I used before? Yeah, actually, I had a presentation last year and someone said the colour was wrong, and the year before. Brilliant. It's feedback. I need to work on colours. So then you don't get the consequences. Even if you ask yourself, has anyone ever said before you picked the wrong colours? No, they haven't. Okay, maybe it's not my issue, maybe it's his issue. The consequences are gone. Now, it's a very simple explanation for that, but if you can apply it to your life and think, what is the adversity I get? Maybe it's I get a text off someone and I don't want to open it because I think it's going to be bad news, and then I start going through all this shit in my mind about what it could be about. Maybe it could be someone saying across words. They're the quick ways to change your brain.
See, I wasn't great with money and stuff, and I was like getting into debt and stuff, especially when I was like late teens, early 20s. And I was like that. If I got a bill through the post, I'd just bury me head in the sand, bury me head in the sand, bury me head in the sand, bury me head in the sand. Parking tickets, bury my head in the sand, bury my head in the sand, leave it. Oh, it's only a fucking parking ticket, whatever.
Yeah.
A bailiff knocked on the door once.
Yeah.
For a parking ticket.
I've told this,
yeah. For a parking ticket. You'd think like a bailiff would be something to do with debt or maybe council tax for a parking ticket, mate. And I was like, fuck off, mate. But I had to pay it. I had to pay like 400 quid. And then I don't know, I reached this point where I thought, now, when I get that letter, I'm not even going to have a coffee first. I'm not going to, if I come down and one that letter's there, I'm fucking open it now. Yeah. Because I'd rather attack it head on. And 9 times out of 10, it's your brain thought or your mind and what was stored there, like what you just said, Phil, is way worse than what it actually is. And you're like, oh, it's just a letter off a charity, or it's just something offering me PPI. Yeah. So that's good, because that acts as a pattern interrupter, this concept of do it now. That's the pattern interrupter. So, if you ever have, like, you start going into some, like, negative different, just stand up and move. Change the state you're in. It'll change the physiology in your body, but it's a pattern interrupter. It changes the brain. Because remember what I said? The brain is like a dog. It's a bit thick. So imagine a dog. Imagine, like, there's a dog here trying to get some of this nice lager you've given me, and then suddenly I go and throw a ball. Pattern interrupter, it goes off for the ball. It's forgotten about it.
So back to, like, Steve Peters and the chimp paradox. With the technique of the MDR, which I spoke about at the start, with the light. So what you're doing is you're getting a person to follow the light just with their eyes. And if you do something like that long enough, the conscious mind, the monkey, will jump in and say, this isn't working. The fuck's you doing with that light? So I'll ask a question like, what's your postcode? Backwards. That's throwing a banana at the chimp. It doesn't matter. And then you go back to it. So there's loads of little hacks like that once you're aware of them. And they're great as well if you ever deal with someone who is having a bit of a panic attack. There's a story about George Harrison, and someone broke into, like, his mansion in Oxford, and he's at the top of the stairs, and it's about to get violent, and he shouts, Hare Krishna! And I felt, what? It just gives you that second. Do you know what I mean?
Is that true?
Yeah. Well, have you ever, I don't know if you ever listened to the Russell Brand podcast.
No.
And he speaks similarly about this guy. He's walking along, and this fella was, like, with his girlfriend, and he was like, they both appeared quite drunk and upset, and Russell Brand was just walking along, and sorry, actually, it was a guest on Russell Brand's podcast. Okay. It was the famous illusionist, the British guy,
Darren Brown.
And this is what he tells the story. He says this guy, like, sees him and comes over, and as often he's arguing with his miss, and he starts to get really aggressive, and Darren Brown was like, and he's in his face, and he just goes, Darren Brown just went, my wall's 8 foot, not 4 foot. And the guy just stopped. And because it was a non sequitur, it had nothing to, it was out of context, it was an unusual thing to say. And it diffused his aggression. and he didn't know what to do, and he just sat down on the curb and started to get upset. And he said, and you may understand what the effect of that was. Maybe it was a diffuser.
Yeah,
but it just cut right through what was going to develop into a pretty unpleasant scenario.
Confusion. You'd say and Darren Brown is a hypnotist first and foremost. One person who's probably the world's most famous hypnotist that you wouldn't know because he never mentions it is Tony Robbins.
What?
Yeah, have you watched what Tony Robbins does? Yeah, look at his. He's all about this. He's very good, by the way, and he's probably the reason.
Like a motivational speaker.
Yeah, well, he's probably the reason that I got into this, which I'll go into in a minute. But Robbins, he uses NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because that was similar to what you were saying before in my mind from what I've read.
So that comes from hypnosis, but just look at the words, techniques he uses.
Interesting.
And the best sort of, I always believe this saying, and I think it was Einstein who said something about simplicity. Keep things simple. And I always think, do you know what? If I've got a client in front of me, if I can explain their issue better than they can, they're going to trust me to help them with it, aren't they? But if you think about like what Tony Robbins does, he takes complex models from NLP and hypnosis and he explains them simply. And people just want simple things, don't we? Again, because our brains are lazy and like silly dogs, aren't they? I've got nothing against dogs, by the way. I keep flagging them off in case we get sued by a dog company. But the brain, like I say, is
PCAs like that.
Someone who identifies as a dog, probably.
Yeah. Non-binary dog. Yeah. So Robbins is, first and foremost, a brilliant hypnotist. And a lot of people, motivational speakers, are using like conversational hypnosis without you even realising. So like Darren Brown. If you tell me a motivational speaker, I'll tell you how they're using hypnosis.
Gary Vee, your man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, look at it, right? So there's a way to influence people, because that's all we need to do in life is influence people. So I'll be honest, I use techniques of influence to help people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other people might use them in a negative way to manipulate people. So, for example, Gary Vee is very good because he's very motivating, he's very uplifting. But two things he does is, one, he polarizes people. So he might say something like, you've got the same 24 hours as everyone else. You've got no fucking excuse why you can't start your own $1 million business. Now, some people might look at that and go, yeah, you're right, Gary. And other people might look at that and go, well, fucking hell, Gary, I've got 3 kids and I've got this and that. And he's polarized his audience. But they'll both keep watching, because the ones who like him will be like, yeah, more of this, Gary. And the ones who don't like him will keep watching, going, I don't like that, Gary.
Yeah, confirmation bias coming in again.
Yeah. And then the second thing you do is throw rocks at people's enemies. So by throwing rocks at people's enemies is helping them see, actually, you know what, you are right. Life is a bit unfair at times, isn't it? You have to believe in yourself, because life gives you enough. Yeah, he's on our side, we believe. You know what I mean?
I definitely relate to that when you watch his videos, his clips.
That's like people who are going through a breakup. They want to listen to sad songs because it feels like they're being listened to.
Yeah. Sound like you've been through a few there, mate. Anything you want to share with us?
Get that guitar.
I haven't listened to any of Adele's albums.
Have you ever heard of the Milgram Experiment?
No.
So this perceived authority is a fascinating thing, because what I'd implore anyone watching this to do is just research some of the things we've spoke about, just so you get a bit more wise about like what advertising's doing to you and stuff like that. So the Milgram Experiment was this. Just after World War II, psychologists, I think it was in America, wanted to understand how people could do some of the atrocities that they did. So what they did was they set up this this lab, and they got a fellow with a lab coat and a clipboard, and he got someone in and he said, right, listen, we've got someone next door and we've got a little thing there, and when you press the dial they get a little electric shock. So all we're gonna ask you to do, we're gonna give you instructions and you must follow the instructions. So they'd say, put it on 1, and you'd hear in the other room, zzz, put it on 2, zzz, put it on 3, zzz, stop, and it would go up to 10. And the higher they got up, most people who they got to do it would be like, I'm not doing that. And he'd be like, no, you have to do it, it's part of the process. Most of the people who they got to do the experiment would go all the way up to 10, because they perceived the man in the white coat with the clipboard was authoritative, and so they had to follow it. So the rationale behind that was maybe some of the people who worked in like, as train guards, seeing these trainloads of people going to Auschwitz, etc., were compliant, or actually were they just following orders? It's very murky waters, isn't it? But it just shows what the human mind can do. Because another example of this was in like the 70s or 80s, they found this road junction. dead busy, and it was like a set of traffic lights. So at one morning at about 10 o'clock, they went, and there was a group of people waiting there, and he had a secret camera, and he got a fella in a suit with a briefcase with one of them big mobile phones, and the traffic's still coming, and he walks out on the phone, he looks up, and he just walks out, and everyone follows him. Next morning, 10 o'clock, there's a group of people waiting to cross the road. This time they get a fella dressed as a hippie. The hippie walks up, looks across, walks out. No one follows him. Because the perceived authority, he's got a suit, a tie, a briefcase.
Interesting, isn't it?
Got to do what he says.
Well, that happens at the lights, doesn't it? If you're sat at the red light,
yeah,
and someone drives off through it mistakenly, you go to follow them.
Oh yeah,
every time,
almost automatically sometimes. Yeah,
someone does it. It's like
that's your first instinct, not to look at the lights.
Yeah, your first instinct to follow them. It must have changed. Yeah,
must have changed. Must be broke.
Yeah,
they're going, we'll go. Yeah, and that's what we do as humans a lot, innit? We sort of, but again, it goes back to, we do the same with our behaviour and our limiting beliefs. So, you know, that thing about the text, a lot of people will have that where maybe they're getting ready for a night out, and a text goes and you just see the name and it's their friend and think, oh God, why does he text me? He's not coming, is he? We're not having a night out. No one likes me, I'm so popular. And then you look at it and it's actually, we're on the way now in a taxi. Everything changes, doesn't it? So I think once you start understanding the mind more and a bit about psychology, it helps you. And that's another thing I try and do. So that's why I call myself the Mind PT, because if you went to a PT for the 6-pack and you just did sit-ups in his office and you came back a week later and did some more sit-ups and you made no changes to your diet, you're not going to get a 6-pack. But if you went and did sit-ups and you went home and he taught you how to do sit-ups every day and you change your diet. So what I do is I try and give techniques to people and empower them with techniques that they can keep using. Because otherwise, you're not really helping, are you? If you're just helping people in one session, you want to give them something to keep going. It's like, you know, give the man a fish, feed him for the day, teach him to fish.
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting when people talk about mind diets as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you're on your...
I haven't heard that phrase, you know.
Haven't you?
No. What is it?
I've seen it on a podcast. So basically saying, if you want to get in shape for something, or you just generally want to get in shape and improve how you're looking and therefore improve how you feel, you change your diet and you exercise more. So it's doing the same, but for your mind, for your mental health. So limit how much you're on social media. Limit what you're doing on your iPhone. Don't just mindlessly scroll, and therefore these other things come out about, you know, comparison paragons and stuff like that that you're never really going to win at.
Maybe limit negative thoughts.
Yeah, limit negative thoughts, all that type of stuff. There's a guy who he talks a lot about. He's a business guy who owns a haulage company called Steve something. I can't remember his surname. But he did this thing called Big Fish, Little Fish, a little tiny book it is that he used to read. And he said every day he gets up and he said this is the way he has it in his mind, right? So his room, he goes downstairs, he does a bit of yoga in the morning on like YouTube, and in his room he's got like a shelf, top shelf, and on the top shelf he's got like praise and credit that he's received in the past. So if he gets in the morning, no matter how anxious he is about his day, he comes down, he says mentally, he's got his eyes closed, but mentally goes up, gets the shelf, brings it down and opens up the praise. Oh, thanks for that, you did this, you were excellent at that. And that's how he starts his day every day.
I like that.
It's a similar technique, isn't it?
Yeah, and so one thing that I encourage people to do is like, I've written a book about sleep, and one of the biggest reasons why people have sleeping disorders is because of the mind. So if you were to like go home tonight and have like a massive packet of chocolate digestive just before bed, the next morning you wake up, your stomach would be killing, wouldn't it? But think about the thoughts you're putting into your head as you go to sleep, because that's what your brain's going to work on, that's what your brain's going to ruminate on. And I don't know how many times it's happened to you where maybe, so I used to work in an office environment before I did all this, and you'd have a bit of confrontation in work, and because it's the English way, you know, you don't argue back or something. You go home at night and you're thinking about it all night, and then you fall asleep and you wake up at like 3 a.m. and you're like, fucking hell, I should have said that. Can't wait to get back to the office tomorrow.
Practice it in the mirror.
Yeah, and then you can't get back asleep. It's because you've put them thoughts in your mind. So a couple of little techniques I say to people is clear your mind before you go to bed, and there's different ways. One of them is imagine that you are walking along a beach and the sea and the sky, the same beautiful colour, but there's broken shells all over the beach, so sharp and jagged that you'd cut your feet if you walked on them. So you get a bucket and spade and you collect all the shells in. And then you go to the edge of the water and you make a pile of the shells and you're going to make a sandcastle. So you get a layer of sand and a layer of shells and a layer of sand, so on and so forth, till you've built the biggest sandcastle with all the shells on. And as you step back and the waves come in, taking the shells and the sand, mixing them together out to sea, you realise those shells was the thing that was on your mind that you didn't want. And a wave even washes over your feet, cleansing you. And then when all the shells are gone, you take a pen or a stick and you write the phrase calm, safe, happy. So you do that every night. You clear the shite out your brain. That's one way. Another way is, you know, any sort of clearance technique is you've got a suitcase with all the crap that you've been worried about that day. And you know what? I'm just gonna store it there till tomorrow morning. That's really helpful, because if you wake up in the night, you can do it again. And the more you do that, what are we doing? We're training the dog, we're training the brain, aren't we?
Yeah.
To be able to clear stuff.
Another good one as well is that was always one of those people, still am to a degree, but I've learned to deal with it better as I've got older, is when your brain like reminds you of things. Shit, I haven't done that.
Yeah.
Fuck, I haven't prepared for that tomorrow.
I'll have to just write it straight
away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the key. And this book that I was telling you about before from Daniel Levitin says that imagine your brain. So he's talking about like we're not equipped mentally, in terms of storage at least, to deal with the amount of information coming our way right now.
Yeah.
So he basically said that you imagine your brain is like a laptop that was Boss back in the day in like 2001. Boss, brand new. It'd be fucked now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be able to handle Windows 10, the updates, the fucking little paperclip would be shouting at you.
Yeah.
Fucking Cortana, whatever the name is, it'd be shouting at you. Like, it wouldn't work. So what he says is, if you feel like you're getting that way, then write it down. Put it in your iPhone notes, like what you do. Or just write it down on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because that becomes the equivalent of your pen drive or your external hard drive.
Yeah.
And that's helped me massively. If I wake up 1, 2, 3 in the morning, I get up, I write shit down. Well, what I do is I send myself an email.
Yeah.
So I'll put like to do and the following day. And then I'll note just shit that doesn't even matter. Just anything to get it out my head.
Yeah.
And then I forget about it. I'm like, I go to sleep straight away.
The next day, Joe, when you look at the email, do you like feel weird? Like, why did I think that was so important?
No, because often it's not like a frantic thing where I've wrote down crazy shit. It's like,
do you not think, well, I would have done that anyway? Why did at that time in the middle of the night would my brain tell me it was that important?
Yeah, but and I don't know if this is just me, but at that time at like 1:15 a.m. when I've got to be up at 6, and I can hear a tap dripping, or my heart's beating particularly loud, or I live in Kirby, so there's a police siren or the helicopter. I'll do anything to get to sleep. Like, so get everything out my mind and write it down, and it works.
Yeah.
Because what this guy says, this Daniel Levitin, is that your mind will, or your brain will remind you of things that you think you're gonna forget. Just keep reminding you, and once you write it down, your brain's like, well, I don't need to remind you anymore because you wrote it down.
The brain's amazing. Sorry for the brain's like such an unbelievable thing, isn't it? But at the same time, what I find interesting already from this conversation, and you've nailed it with the dog metaphor. You demystifying it, because it's amazing, but at the same time, it's not some like thing that's undecipherable. It can be a bit binary. It can be a bit simple, can't it? It's training it. But it's not something that's like, it's beyond me. I can't train my brain. You're joking. This mega computer, it's actually quite straightforward, isn't it?
It can be conditioned, can't it?
Yeah.
So like...
Anyway, you were going to say...
No, do you guys use Alexa?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, your brain's got an Alexa called the Reticular Activating System, the RAS, or some people call it the critical factor. So...
It's not got the same ring to it though, has it?
No, it hasn't, mate, no. Good idea, should have called it Alexa. But basically, so like, on your way here tonight... How many red Ford Mondeos did you see?
No idea.
Do you reckon you saw any? Maybe.
Probably.
Don't know.
Probably,
but if we spoke...
All the Delta stickers on it.
Yeah, probably, If we spoke for an hour, that would be a good podcast about red Ford Mondeos. I guarantee you'd see loads on the way home. And all these people watching would see loads.
Yeah.
Because your RAS, your reticular activating system, is looking for them. Yeah. So just think again, going back to the very start, the limiting beliefs you have about yourself. Oh, I'm crap at stuff like that. I'm rubbish with maths. I'm rubbish at spelling. Your reticulated activating system is working on those commands. Yeah, you are rubbish. Yeah, you aren't good enough. You aren't good enough to find a perfect relationship. You'll never lose weight. It's your genes won't let you lose weight. You're right. Okay, I'll make sure you don't lose weight. So one thing I always say to people is start telling everyone that you're the luckiest person you know. I'm so fucking lucky. I am the luckiest person I know. Honest to God, there isn't anyone luckier than me, seriously. Because your RAS is going to make you opportunities that you'll feel luck. And so like a big thing at the moment is the concept of law of attraction, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, this belief, the book, The Secret. You know, you write a check for 100 grand and put it on your fridge and you're going to get it. Or you make a your vision board with your dream house and your dream partner and your dream car, and you just fucking keep it and you look at it every night, you're going to get it.
Thing, like, yeah.
Well, you're not going to fucking get it by doing that. That is good because that's a goal you're setting. But you've got to go away and you've got to work for it. So I always say with stuff like law of attraction, and I say that as a believer in it because I've used it in my own life for everything that's come to me. But you've got to set a goal. You've got to become the person who gets that goal. So let me give an example. I was very fortunate in my previous job to do a bit of marketing. I used to work for Shop Direct, who own like Littlewoods and Very. One of the last roles out there, I was a senior manager in like this customer department where we used to do different adverts to see, you know, what people liked. So about 2 years ago, I loved my business and I was calling myself Relief Hypnotherapy because I hadn't qualified as a psychologist, mainly doing hypnotherapy. And I thought, whatever issue you've got, you need relief from it, don't you? And then I started thinking, who's my ideal client? And I thought, you know what? I love working with every type of person, and I always will, but I love to work with sports people. I love to work with the top sports people. So I couldn't just then make a vision board with all my favourite footballers and boxers and whatever, and you know what I mean? So then it was like, okay, well, the version of me who's working with these people, what will he be like? How will he think? How will he approach things? What will he be called? Well, really, they'd be more suited to something like a mind PT. I'll call myself the mind PT. What else would I need to do? So I used to wear suits when I first started, because the building I'm lucky enough to be in is a gorgeous building, and it's got other officers in there. They all wear suits. So I'd have people come and poor people, my first clients would come with anxiety, and I'd be sitting with a suit like, okay, how can we help you? And he'd be like,
suit's a barrier.
Yeah,
had that for years.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that although perceived authority, if you've got someone with an addiction and they tell you they've been to jail, I'm going to wear a shirt and tie, a white shirt, and I'm going to be quite authoritative because that's what they might need, their brain. But anyway, so back to this, so I'm like, okay, mind PT, probably wear hoodies, and then it was like, okay, cool. So when I've started to become the person who can get these clients, now what do I need to do? Am I just going to wait and is Lionel Messi going to find me on Instagram and say, can you come and do some mind work? No, you go out and if there isn't a door there, you make one. So in my case, just been announced David Price is fighting Povetkin. Okay, now that's a boss fight, that. I'm putting my kids to bed. Instagram, didn't know Pricey. Message. Hi mate, I can help you win that fight. Put the kids to bed, takes ages. I've got 3 little boys, they take ages to go to bed. Put them to bed, come outside. Instagram, got a message, look at it, David Price. What's David Price message? Fucking hell, I messaged them. Have you got a website? Yeah. Lucky enough, one of my good friends built me a boss website. Bang. Here's my number, mate. Give me a ring. So what have I done? I've put myself in a position where I can be the person who works with those type of people, but then I've worked,
to get there.
So let me give you another example. People might want money. They might want to be manifesting money. Okay, so look at what you're spending now. Look at what you can save. But change your approach to money. Because I used to be, like you said before, my relationship with money was terrible. Whereas now, it's a bit of an American cliche. I say to myself every day, telling the reticulated activating system, money is a servant to me. I attract and manifest money, success, health, wealth and happiness. Money is a servant to me. So I see it now as I'm self-employed and you have difficult weeks, but I know there's money coming. Not that money's the be on end all. So with law of attraction and with anything mindfulness, you've got to become the person first. So, let's talk, we spoke a bit off air about addiction. I think it's weird when people say they're alcoholics. I'm an alcoholic, but I haven't drank for 10 years. Well, that tells me you're not then. You're not an alcoholic. you're an alcoholic if you've got one in your can and you're going, I'm an alcoholic. Because think of what you're telling your reticular activating system. So I'd suggest people who are recovering alcoholics is to actually call themselves alcohol-free. Oh, I'm alcohol-free, thanks, don't want one. I've been alcohol-free for 10 years. The terminology, innit?
Isn't there something about the 12-step I could be wrong here, but AA, where it's like about actually, and it's probably the early days of the recovery process, where it's acknowledging that you've got a problem, and maybe that's where it's helpful to say, yeah, I am an alcoholic. But as you say, 10 years later, it's not a helpful thing to keep telling you, Raz, let's go with Raz. Yeah. Because, well, you're evidently not.
And you know what? I say that with the greatest of respect to people who are recovering from alcohol issues. Yeah. It's my take on it. It's my perception. Everything in life's a perception, isn't it? But I just think, you know, the labels we give ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves is sort of what we become, isn't it? It's vitally important. So the other cheesy thing that I do, and I'd suggest people do, is rather than say like problems, call them challenges. Yeah. What would you rather have, a problem or a challenge that I can rise to? And then when you get comfortable with calling them challenges, call them opportunities.
Because if it's a challenge, the competitive edge that you've got buried somewhere will come out, won't it? Whereas if it's a problem, you might just make an excuse to avoid the problem. Yeah. Even if it's the same thing.
No, it's true. Why do you reckon do you reckon it's like a British thing? Because I always do what you've done there. I'll often think of something that is, I know makes sense and is very significant and very true, but I'll sometimes couch it and I'll go, I know it's cheesy and American.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I do that, because that's so true.
Do you know what?
And I've had success with thinking about like challenging, and I'll say, it's a really challenging situation, and it makes me feel so much better about it. Yeah. Rather than going, I've just got this, I'm fucked here. Well, no, it's a challenging situation, but you can overcome a challenge, can't you?
Well, you just highlighted a limiting belief that I didn't realise I have. Yeah. Why am I give? It's the same as like if you send someone a message, an important message, and you put lol on the end. You're diffusing it.
Yeah.
Like when
you're undermining yourself.
You are though, because when I first went to uni, I went to uni as 18. I was a fucking dickhead. I dropped out. I had the Kruger effect of fucking sixth form was a piece of piss, uni will be. Wasn't. So then I went back, because I loved history, I went back and studied history, and what I'd do is, it was in Edgehill, brilliant campus. I was a little bit older than the other students, and a lot of them had come from like, well, they were geeks to be honest. So they'd answer questions, so I'd answer a question and then I'd put, this happened in World War II because of X, Y and Z, and then I'd say, maybe, or possibly. And I remember a lecturer went to me, why do you keep saying possibly? No thanks. No, Tommy. Why do you keep saying possibly at the end of it? You're undermining your own view. You need to be confident. Yeah. Because it is maybe a British thing.
It must be a cultural thing, for it to be so universal.
Yeah,
the American a lot of Americans, I can't be generalised, but don't have that caveat.
Or maybe they have less shame.
Maybe.
Without generalising. Or it could be like an insecurity thing which is related to acceptance.
Yeah. And to be
so I'm saying lol on the end, just in case you kick off or whatever. I was only messing.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I might say the cheesiness for it to be accepted. Not in I hope this person likes me, but if I say, let's call everything an opportunity because you grow from your opportunities. But I say, why do we call them opportunities? You know, I know it's cheesy. They might accept that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cheese associated with your industry, isn't there? Let's be honest, with any industry, there's a lot of like things that just become eventually a trope, and it's boring. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, you know, so I do hypnosis. It was funny when I first learned hypnosis. Like, I'd be in the post office and I'd just be standing in there, and I'd just turn to someone and go, I'm a hypnotist, you know. I am. And they go, you can't hypnotise me. I can't hypnotise you, I will hypnotise you. You get past that. You feel like so now if I speak to someone, they go, you do hypnosis, don't you? And I go, yeah. Can you? I can't be hypnotised. Oh, good for you. You know, it's that battle that has gone. And I suppose, you know, there's that joke that people level at vegans, which is, you know, there's the vegans who have to tell everyone they're a vegan. It's been 5 minutes, I haven't told anyone I'm a vegan.
Has David, the producer, told you yet? Because
only twice. But that vegans get that levelled against them, which is untrue, obviously. So again, we often like going back to maybe this culture thing we do, and those excuses we use are maybe too because we're not fully confident in what we're saying.
You don't own it.
Yeah,
maybe. So like you said earlier, you were going to tell us, but you were in Shop Direct, doing marketing.
Yeah.
So what led to? We've kind of heard what led to it, but like, what's the story of why you decided to become the Mind PT?
Okay, so if we go back to like my teenage years, and my mum and dad split up when I was like about 13, 14. And
that's bad age for that to happen, isn't
put the music on now, mate. Yeah. So
it's never a good age, but that's a shit age. That's
yeah. And we ended up, me and my mum and my older brother, he's a bit older, so he was like 18. We moved in with my nan and granddad. Now, my nan had also just got Alzheimer's, so actually it probably worked out well because we helped care for her. But where I'm going with this is, my granddad was like old school, really strong work ethic. Like, he could get shot in the leg and he'd still be in work all day. You know, that kind of like Scouse mentality came from Scotty Road and stuff like that. So, in fact, my granddad, he got evacuated during World War II to Wales. They weren't getting fed and they were getting abused. And him and his mates walked home from Wales to Liverpool. And so stayed in Liverpool during the war. So, grew up with him. So when I got to about my mid-20s, I had this great work ethic and I'd been successful in work. But my self-esteem was shattered. Like, I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't look myself in the mirror. Hated myself. Was probably a horrible place to be around. Live for the weekend, party at the weekend. So I'd party at the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'd be like in the depths of depression. Thursday, Friday, oh great, it's nearly Saturday again. So everything started to change, and I probably wasn't, I wasn't a good partner at the time in my relationship. And then I got to like my mid-20s and I started like thinking, do you know what, actually, the world owes you nothing, man. You do this yourself. So I got to a good level in work, got to like senior management, working in the head office. And it got round Christmas and I just had my eldest son, Oscar, and I asked for a holiday, say like the way Christmas fell, say like Monday was the 27th or whatever. So I asked for a holiday for the Monday and didn't get it. So we went out with a couple of friends and their partners and bladdered, boss night and that, got home, woke up in the morning, thought, I'm still pissed, I can't go to work now. So rang in sick. Now anyone who's worked in an office knows you can't just take one day off, it looks dodgy.
Yeah.
So I took this week off, right? So I took this week off, and during this week, and bear in mind I'd asked for a holiday, never got it, and then fucking phoned in sick, took this week off and I hated myself the whole week. Really thinking, my God, if my granddad knew I was doing this. I used to be the type, if I was off work sick genuinely and I had to go to the doctors, I'd be worried if someone saw me and thought I was like lying. So I'm hating myself this whole week. Went back to work, and as luck would have it, I got sick, got the flu. So I was off for a week then. So I thought, you know what, fuck it, I've got to do something with my life now. So that week I did a few things. One, started listening to Tony Robbins. I thought, actually, yeah, do you know what? I can change my life. Two, I watched this thing with James Gandolfini where he went over to see American like GIs and that serving, and ones who come back who had PTSD and who had limbs missing. Yeah. And it was so humble. And this is a guy like, I love The Sopranos, one of my favourite actors. And this is this big giant of a man in tears, you know what I mean, sharing this message. Yeah. But the third thing, the most vital thing was, I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. You heard of it?
No.
Yeah.
Powerful. So, Viktor Frankl was a psychologist in Vienna, in Austria, before World War II. Very eminent. So you've got Freud and Carl Jung, who's better than Freud, and then Frankl was the next one. And as the war's sort of kicking off, him and his wife have got visas to go and escape to America because he's that good. They want him in Harvard and that. And he's agonising, should I stay with my family, my dad and my mum, or should I go with my wife? And his dad comes home one day, throws this little thing on the kitchen table, says, look at this, Victor. And he looks at it, and it's from a mural in a synagogue which the Nazis had just smashed up, and it was the 10 Commandments. And he's looking at, honour thy mother and father. So Frankel's like, it's a sign from God. I've got to stay. So he gets to Auschwitz. He's standing in Auschwitz one day. He realises the Nazis have took all his possessions. He knows they've killed his dad. He guesses correctly they've gassed his mum and his wife. They've shaved him. They've branded him. Fucking hell, what's the point of living? And then he came up with the saying. He realised he couldn't change how he reacted. So if you can't change the situation, change yourself. And I was like, fucking hell, yeah, you're totally right. No matter what upbringing I've had, no matter what I've gone through and the hard stuff that has happened to me, I'm an adult now. I've got to do something about it. So I was like, yeah. So that was the catalyst. So then it was like, how can I do it? So I thought, you know what, I used to have this belief, a cognitive bias, that unless you had a certificate in something, you weren't knowledgeable about it. So it's like, well, I must go and learn something. So learned hypnosis, got my offers, did a bit of both, built that business up, managed to leave the day job, and then learned Reiki, then went back to uni and done my master's in psychology, and then got to the stage now where the mindpt.
Wow.
So, and do you know what? That was in the span of, that was from 27, 34 now.
Sounds like
Doesn't take long.
That's a relatively small period of time, isn't it?
It's actually
Jordan.
30 it was, sorry. Life started changing at 27, 30,
years.
yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like during that week off,
Yeah.
you've rung in sick, you've probably put the voice on.
Yeah.
Because that's what everyone does.
Yeah, do you know how, by the way, do you know how you put the voice on? You'll be doing this tomorrow, won't you?
Go on.
You lie on your bed with your head upside down. Phone in like, oh,
Yes.
I'm not feeling too well, you know. Yeah.
That is the one.
Yeah, there you go.
Not
that I encourage phoning in sick.
I definitely don't encourage it because we employ a lot of staff.
There you go, mate.
I was going to say, love nursing listeners, turn away now.
But yeah, it sounds like during that week, so then shortly after that,
Yeah.
guilt's crept in.
Yeah.
And then probably as that week, was it a full week you had off?
Yeah.
So probably as that week's gone on, you've almost become self-aware in those few days where you've hit a stage where you thought, actually, the only person responsible for where I am today is me.
Yeah.
And therefore, I can do things now. I can action things that are going to put me into a different place in X amount of months, weeks, years.
Yeah. And it, like I'm, you know, I'll say stuff about like energy, vibration, and leveling up. And what I find is when you make some changes, you'll get challenged, you'll get tested to see if you are at that level. So for me, it was, I went out and I got this this diploma in hypnosis, and I got the next level diploma in it, and I had my office, and I was going to speak every morning at 6 from where I live in Oral Park, and then I was going to my office till 9, not really seeing my son, and my second son Max was on the way. And then I got to a bit of, that's when the challenge came to me, well, fucking hell, is it worth doing this? I just want to do this full time, but I can't afford to. So then it was like, well, all right, well, what are you going to do about it? Work out how much money I need to earn, but also what can I do in this time where I'm so the in-shop director at the time, some of the people I was working with were quite toxic, and the role I had, I was delivering messages that I would usually deliver to people. So I thought, well, what can I learn from this? So I thought, well, what does the future me need to know now? He needs to understand people. So I started learning body language, and I'd watch body language, and I'd influence people's body language. So now when people come into my office, I've seen 1,000 people like that before because I've worked with them. So I think the other thing is, when you do have adversity, is being able to see, what can I learn from it?
Or recognising that it's happening.
Yeah, accepting it.
Yeah.
And getting out of the victim mentality, because that's the other thing we do sometimes. Like, our trauma becomes our identity. So Jazz is a great example, you know, from Jazz's upbringing. That could stay with him now. He could be committing crimes. He could be in jail.
Well, he's got any adversity, not adversity, but any failures he has, or any job. Say if he wasn't a boxer and he goes for a job, that guy has got more ready-made excuses than everybody else, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But he's chosen not to go that way.
Look, we've mentioned, because there'll probably be people watching this. So as you guys know, I've worked with quite a few boxers, and there's probably people watching this who want to know a bit about the boxers. So you look at adversity, you look at Big David Price, and you know some of the injustices he's faced in terms of fighting drug cheat opponents. You know, some of the getting punched in the ear and losing that fight, and he's took a lot of abuse from dickheads, to be honest, who wouldn't have the balls to say it to him to his face.
Yeah,
but he keeps going, doesn't he? And I think anyone who can just keep going when you've had adversity. Give you another example of a fighter who I've been spending a bit of time with, Dean Garnett. And Dean is he's on a famous documentary, I think it's on Amazon Prime or Netflix, like about making the weight. And you know, he's at the cusp of going in the
BBC
UFC.
Three.
Yeah,
it was a massive hit.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting.
He's on the
for a
cusp
fight, wasn't it?
of the UFC. He's been offered to go in the UFC before, but what I love about this guy and why I want to mention him is to Google him. Oh, he's just like a really good MMA fighter. Oh, he runs a gym. Speak to the guy. He's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He's created a 6th form course to take like young men and young girls who maybe in school aren't the brightest, but like the discipline of learning to fight, And he'll go and he's got this program funded in that where they spend a bit of each week, school week, going to him, and he's been asked to implement it because obviously stuff like MMA is going to be recognised by the Olympics. He's building this big thing, and where I'm getting at is, if you speak to Dean about like some things that's happened in his life, some of the adversity he's had, you could justifiably understand if he was in prison now, or if he was out selling drugs or whatever. But he's not. He's making something massive with his life.
It's fascinating how, no matter how big, muscular, fit, strong, talented somebody is, if they're not right mentally, they'll pretty much lose against every opponent they go up against, regardless of how much of a journeyman that person is or how talented that person is. Do you know, we were talking to Tony Bellew, our last guest, about, there's this documentary that was on TalkSport called Losing the O. Did you listen to it?
No.
Okay, so it's about losing the O, obviously. And it's about the way that, especially now, the way that fighters are brands. They've got all these people around them who are building them up so that they want that 15-0, 20-0, 25-0, whatever. And when they lose that, because it's more built up than it's ever been before, it's this huge mental block they've got to overcome.
Yeah.
So when someone comes to you who's clearly got the talent because they've reached a certain space in their field, Price is a great example.
Yeah.
And then they lose, or possibly even lose again.
And then again.
How do you approach something like that?
I think I'd approach that like any trauma anyone's had. So the first step, you've got to clear the emotional baggage of it. You know, so what still haunts your mind? How do you feel when you think of it? If you can ever get someone who's got like any type of anxiety or any type of bad memory, if they can feel it physically, it can be shifted. Yeah. So you shift that, and then it's a case of doing something called reframing.
Okay.
So reframing is just looking at something from a different angle. You're driving home tonight thinking, that was a Boss podcast, that is the best guest we've ever had. No, you're driving home tonight.
We won't be driving home.
And a little boy racer cuts you off, and you go to the fight or flight in your brain, and you're like, you little bastard. But if you were to ask yourself, what else could it mean? You'd feel differently. So maybe he's rushing home because he's got a relative dying in hospital, or maybe he's rushing home because his wife's about to give birth, or maybe he's rushing home because he's got diarrhea. Yeah, you change how you feel, don't you? So with a boxer maybe who's had a significant loss, it would be like, well, okay, well, look, what can you learn from it? What does it mean? And oh my God, do you remember when you were just first starting out, the hunger you had because you wanted to get to the top? You've done it before, haven't you?
So you're tapping into those feelings which are buried.
Yeah.
But they're being suppressed by the negative feelings right now. You're just trying to sort of just awaken those again.
And with boxers, the more you know about boxing, like if you listen to Mike Tyson talk, he'll say boxers and real boxing enthusiasts, they won't be asked if someone's like 39-0. They might say, look at someone who's like, well, he lost 2 fights, but one of the fights he lost was against Sugar Ray Robinson, and he'd fought with a broken arm. Or, well, that fight that he actually lost, when you look at it properly, that's what they look at in it. So it's trying to get that with them. And the big one for me is what I do sometimes with boxers. It won't work now because if they watch him, I've got a picture of Muhammad Ali, like a bit of an arty type picture, and I'll take it off the wall, and where I'm sitting, say I've got my client sitting there, I'll have it next to me, and I've got a little gold trophy, and I've got a little bookcase behind me, I'll have that next to me. So they're talking to me, and without realising it, their reticulated activating system is going, Phil, Muhammad Ali, trophy, Phil, Muhammad Ali, trophy, Phil, Muhammad Ali, trophy. He's a winner, he's going to help me fucking win. So then I'll say to him, who's the most famous boxer ever? And they'll go, Muhammad Ali. Yeah. Was he unbeaten? No. There you go. See? But you're right about the O, because it's a bit of relief. I mean, with Joshua, you could tell.
I was going to ask you about Joshua.
Mate, you could tell with Joshua. So I went to his fight against Povetkin in Wembley. Watch him in the interviews before it. See how long his hair is. A sign of depression. Because he normally has his hair crop. A sign of depression. See him talking. Look at his body language going in the ring. I thought Povetkin was going to beat him. I'm surprised he never. So when he went into the next couple of fights, it was only a matter of time.
But he was noticeably less convincing in those fights, wasn't he? From that Povetkin, a bit lacklustre, just doing enough to get by with his natural athleticism and size. But he wasn't the Joshua up to that point.
No.
So what do you think had happened to him then?
I think
had he become jaded with it, or?
I think, to be honest, I'd be asking what's his motivation, because for whatever reason, he's not fighting Wilder and he's not fighting Fury, which is what we all want. So either, I don't think he's not wanting to fight them. is Eddie Hearn suppressing it? Is it some marketing thing? So he's
the
going
first
out.
good fight he's suppressed, to be fair.
Yeah. So he's going out to America. You know, the first fight he's going to fight falls through. This guy's coming at late notice. Fucking imagine, could you be really bothered? So then he gets in the ring and maybe they're saying something's happened before the ring, bit of a panic attack or something. Wouldn't be surprised me. And then he gets in there and then this guy, like Bellew was saying in the interview, you know, he hits hard and he hit you back quick. And he's just been shocked. And he realised, don't really want it anymore.
Because didn't he say, he sat down and said, what's happening here, didn't he?
Yeah.
So what's going on? What's going on here?
So
never felt like that before.
And so I even did a little cheeky post like afterwards, like, come and see me, I'll help you win it back, because I would be able to help him if you
I
want
was just
to.
going to say that. So
I
he
could.
comes to you.
Yeah.
He goes, look, Phil, listen, mate, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
But this fight, I'm fucking dreading it, mate. The guy looks like someone out the alehouse. He fucking punched me in the head. Like, he's dangerous, mate. Like, I've got deals with Under Armour, I've got this, I've got that. Phil, I need to talk to you, mate.
Yeah.
What's the sort of the first thing you're saying to him? Are you like, do you know, like, people come to the mates and they try and get reassurances if they've been rejected by a girl or whatever.
Why did you look at her?
I know, yeah.
I'm just sorry, mate.
Not that that's ever happened to us.
He's patting them away. Is it a bit of reassurance initially to try and get them on side, or is it a specific technique if the Adonis, the Greek god of Anthony Joshua walks in your door?
Good shout, because like he's heard all the compliments you can get, hasn't he?
Exactly.
He's had all the flattery and all the positive reinforcement. So
well, I mean, we see it. We don't often see our strengths, and you've got a lot of people blowing smoke up your arse when you're at that level. What I'd be particularly doing with Joshua is saying to him, like, how old were you when you first started boxing? So I always ask every fighter who comes in, who's your favourite fighter? And it's great the answers you get, because you'd never expect them. It's like, who's your favourite fighter? Where did you get the love from? Where did you get the joy from? And get that little kid inside him, the inner child inside him, to get that love back. So that would be a bit of it. And the other part would be like, come on, mate. You've bought and sold millions of fighters like him. Watch the fight back. The big thing that I get asked loads is, what motivation books could you recommend, or what motivation podcast could you recommend? And I'll be totally honest with you now, like the way you asked me about those books, I generally don't read too many books like that. I read war strategy books. Okay. Mainly old war ones. So you've got Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
I'm going to ask you if you read that.
Be like water, be formless. The best one I've read is one called, one by a German war strategist, a general in like the 1700s, von Clausewitz, might be called The Art of War as well. They've all got similar names. And he talks about, you attack the centre of gravity of your opponent, of your rival, the army you're fighting. So for me, when I'm talking to boxers, it's like, well, listen, attack the centre of gravity. I'm not telling them how to fight, because they know how to fight better than me, but I'm talking about, okay, what's the weakness? What's the weakness of the fighter? With Price, when he fought Povetkin, spent a lot of time, like, I did a lot of research on Povetkin. And Povetkin, he's part of like a religion, which is what we call like paganism.
Is he?
But it's massive in Russia and Ukraine. And he's got a tattoo of it. So I used to say to Price, and he won't mind me mentioning this, I'd be like, do you know what you should do, David? Right? You should turn up at the weigh-in, stand on his feet. And I learned the word for bully in Russian. Stand on his foot and just say the word bully. Because David's such a nice guy. That would be unexpected. That would be like the confusion type
Disruptor.
thing. Yeah. And then I said, and then the second thing you do, mate, is you go in the ring and you have one of the symbols drawn on you. Because like Swifty Stephen Smith, who I spent a lot of time with, he's come like to talk. We have some great chat. I love boxing.
He's like smart lad, Swifty.
Yeah. And I tell him about the brain. And like, cause he's quite religious. So, imagine Stephen turns up for the fight and the opponent suddenly got like, a tattoo of Jesus and a tattoo of Mary and a tattoo of God. It'd be really hard, wouldn't it? Because it's like, if say me and you were having a white collar and I turned up with a big flag like your family behind me. You know what I mean? How could you fight me like that?
Yeah, fuck with you, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Would do.
So that's attacking the centre of gravity, because for Povetkin, his centre of gravity is his faith. Yeah. So where I'm going with this is, so if Joshua comes in and he's a bit broken, it would be like, okay, who's your next opponent? What's their centre of gravity? Attack that centre of gravity. So with his opponents, arguably it's two things. It's his height, but it's also is the fact that he's going to hit you back hard. So how could you attack that? Just fucking run away from him. Don't let him hit you. tire him out, and then knock him out.
But do you not reckon though that what amazed the world about that fight and what made it such a good narrative was the David and Goliath? There's this, I say little relatively as a 5'7" fella,
yeah.
and Dennis Junior's of probably twice my size, whatever. But he was a little fat fella, wasn't he? He didn't look like an athlete. It turned out he was a fantastic boxer.
To him, yeah.
The fact it was also, it's not to be underplayed, the fact that he wasn't meant to fight him. He came in late,
true enough.
and then he looked like
and
that.
he'd come straight after another camp, but
but then he looked like that. It was like, oh, who's this guy? He threw him.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
See what I mean?
But then he's fighting someone who's like the epitome of the athlete, a brand, not just a fighter.
Yeah.
A global brand at this point, unbeaten, indestructible, and it just shouldn't happen, and then it does. Do you reckon AJ was buying into himself as like a mythical figure almost too much?
No,
and he just overlooked him.
I think more. So, Callum Smith got in touch again to learn about the mind. So he came for a few times before the Groves fight, and again, without going into detail of what we talked about.
Super. Yeah.
So one thing that I used to say to Callum was this concept of, you see, Callum, when there's a big thing on the line, and they boxers, I don't mean this in a patronising way because they know the sport inside out, but maybe Groves is going into that fight thinking, I want to remain champion. I want to win the Muhammad Ali trophy. I want to win this fucking 7 million, whatever million it was. Yeah. So I was like, so you just need to go in and you just need to fight. You don't fight the occasion, just fight the fella in front of you. So with Jazza, for example, Jazza's doing this tournament coming up, isn't he? Where they've took a few like elite fighters at his weight, and they're just going to do a draw on the day.
Oh, is this it's like the new version of Prize Fighter?
Yeah.
I heard the son
So
talks about
they don't know. They're all training.
Yeah.
They're all training, aren't they? And it's going to be like, right, you're fighting him. And I think that's brilliant.
I think it is. Manon Argy's involved, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes across really well.
Yeah. So I think, again, what we're getting at there is, maybe AJ has bought into this mythical figure. Maybe we're just not giving enough praise to Ruiz. Maybe.
There's a bit of both, isn't it? So do you know, like, from what I can gather from our conversation so far, those any sort of negative thoughts that creep into AJ's head going into this fight, will it be off my guard again? Will it not be 100%? Will I get punched in the face? This guy's quick, blah blah blah. Rather than bury those negative thoughts, you're sort of saying to own them. Yeah. So I mean, there's a famous saying: if you try and meditate, and the devil joins you, make him join in. So like meditation's a great one because people have this concept of meditation is like, clearing your mind. The only mammal that can clear its mind completely is a dolphin. Okay, so my little tip for people with meditation is this: if I want to meditate and I'm trying to think of like an image, so it is a good one for meditation. Whatever you want to feel at the end of the meditation, get an image or a sense of how that will feel. So say I want to feel relaxed, I'll get an image or a feeling of how would I feel when I'm relaxed. So I'll close my eyes and I'll focus on that image, But if I start thinking about, oh my God, I've got to pay this bill next month, or I've got this to do when I get home, what I then quickly do is a pattern interrupter. And I go, am I breathing in or out? I'm breathing in. Okay. I'll go back to the nice image of me relaxing. If I get another negative thought, I go back to the pattern interrupter. So eventually I've trained my brain, by the way, don't even bother thinking about anything negative because I'll just interrupt it. So you don't interrupt it. So that's a bit like allowing them thoughts to stay. So what it would be like with AJ, if he did say to me, look, I've got these limiting beliefs. I'm worried I'm going to get hit on the counter. I'm worried I'm going to run out of gas. I'm worried I'm going to slip on the canvas. It would maybe give him 3 reasons why they might not happen. So, this, Jazza, if you watch Jazza's last fight at the Olympia,
I'm just going to loo, by the way, excuse me.
He walks out, and as the ring entrance music's going, he stops for a minute, and he soaks it all up, because we'd been speaking, me and him, about like, a good thing to do is rehearse what you're going to do, whatever it is in life. If you've got a job interview, rehearse it. Rehearse walking to the place, rehearse talking, rehearse sending the text saying you got the job. So for him, it was like we practiced rehearsing everything about the fight. And then so he needed his anchor. So his anchor to remind himself of that was, I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to fight to my true potential. For him, he believes in God, I've got God on my side. And anchoring's another big one. So, You remember when England won the World Cup in 2003, rugby, and Johnny Wilkinson, he had like the final kick, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he'd stand there like that. So what he's done is, on the training ground, he spent hours perfecting his kick, and every time he did a good kick, he stood there and he's made a mental snapshot of the state he's in, the steps he went through. So he's created an anchor. So when he needed to go out and do the perfect kick to win the World Cup, by doing that, he's reminded his brain of everything the brain needs to do to make him do the perfect kick. So these anchors...
So that's what you call anchoring, just bringing yourself back down to where you're at.
Anchoring's like giving yourself a button to make you feel a certain way. So, for example, with people with cravings, like chocolate addiction or smokers, I always say to them, well, you know, when you've got a craving, how would you need to feel to not have the cigarette or the Mars bar? And generally, they'd need to feel strong. So I'd spend a bit of time with them thinking of times in their life when they've been really strong. And I'd get them to really embody the moment. And at the point where they can remember the strength the most, make a fist. And you get them to practice that. So then later on, when they're at home and they're sitting down to watch, you know, TV or whatever, and the missus have got all the chocolates out, and do you want a Mars bar? No, I'm strong, I don't need it. So again, maybe with AJ, it would be giving them some anchors to use.
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you struggled recently with the invention of the iPhone, which is fantastic, and social media, and then things like Vine and Instagram? Our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. I've noticed that. If you've not noticed recently, if you read a book now, it's way harder than it was 10 years ago. Was that just me?
I've noticed that.
It's fucking hard.
I used to read a lot. I still read relatively a lot, but what annoys me, and even when I'm watching a series I love, I'll try and put my phone in the other room, because otherwise
that's the one.
Just scrolling, thinking, I value this. This is like a short bit of downtime. Focus on it.
Yeah.
So
I'll say that, but I'll still fucking look at my phone.
You do. So like I've gone through phases of like deleting loads of apps, coming off social media.
Your Instagram history must be like flatline, bang, flatline.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He's always deleting it. Like.
So like, but I'll put my phone down, because even if like you get a notification that is just nothing, like, I don't know, reminding you to do something, just some shitty app, but your phone will light up, so it'll take you away from the moment. So if I'm sat with my wife on the couch, sorry, I thought pointed to yours.
Come on, let's get to bed.
If I'm sat with my wife on the couch and we're watching something and it's really deep, it's a great thing on Netflix, I don't want to be taken away from that moment. I want to share that with her.
Yeah.
But if my phone lights up, it'll take me away from that, even momentarily.
Yeah.
So I'll like put my phone face down. I'll stuff it down the couch towel, these different things. Because, but even when it's there, I'm reading something now. I'll read like a page and I'm like, I'll look at my phone. I'm like, I'll just get it, and I'm thinking, why have I just picked it up? So someone like you, who's focusing so much on being in the moment and trying to anchor people and stuff like that, how would you battle those, those sort of
habits?
Really short attention spans?
Well, you've got to ask yourself, why do you need your phone on those times? Unless you're like, a brain surgeon and you might be going into the surgery, or a business owner. Like, do you really need it on when you're Sunday night and you're watching whatever it is you like to watch?
So do you enforce that then? If people come in and they turn the phones off, or do you not?
Well, I have to, because if I'm going to hypnotise them and the phone goes off, so I'll usually just say, can you put your phone on airplane mode? But you know what? To counter that, because I do see that happening and I do understand that myself, but what checking your phone a lot is doing, and scanning and going through various apps and things like that, it's actually improving part of your working memory. Because if you ever witness a really traumatic event like a car crash, my advice to you, this is scientifically proven, before post-traumatic stress can develop, before the neurons can wire together in your brain, you get your phone out, you get anything that involves fine motor skills, your hands, your fingers and your eyes. So you get your phone out and play a game, or you look at clothes or something like that, that'll stop the neurons from developing in a traumatic way around the amygdala. Scientifically proven. So what I would say is on two things to that is, if it is becoming an issue, just ask yourself, do I really need my phone on right now? But secondly, this is what I did. So when I put my kids to bed, sometimes read them a story. They've got my eldest two in bunk beds, so you'd end up standing, they talk to themselves for ages, and you know what kids do. So eventually I'd find I was just looking through my phone, like mindless stupid stuff, and then I thought, you know what, do something constructive. So now I play chess on my phone. because I'm doing something for my brain, aren't I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm on Duolingo now, trying to learn Spanish.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, what's productive, innit?
Absolutely.
I used to watch Sky every morning, right? I'd come down, I wake up at 6 every morning, I come downstairs, I used to watch Sky News when Eamon Holmes was on it like 2 or 3 years ago.
Big fan of his.
Yeah, same. But then I thought, you know what, I'm fucking watching this depressing shit. This is the first thing I do every day, is watch this shit. So, like, what's my day going to be like?
Exactly.
So I stopped. So now I read every day. Every morning I come down, feed the cat, have a coffee, and I read a book. I read at least a chapter a day every day, because I think I'm starting on a real positive.
Yeah.
So my day's starting off right.
Do you know what? That is great, because what I also say to people at night, so you know, we're talking about like the last thing you consume at night.
Yeah.
You think about. So my missus, we never had a telly in the bedroom for years, because really you shouldn't. Well, after we had 3 kids in the space of 4 years, so now it's the only chance we get to watch the telly. That's why we've got a telly now. But in the morning they might come in and we'll just put the telly on. So we'll watch it in bed every night. But if you think about it, if you're watching the depressing news and you're putting that in your brain and going to sleep, I like to watch stuff like gangster films and that. But what I tell myself is, this is entertainment. She likes to watch like Making a Murderer and stuff like that. So I'll just say to her, just remember it's sort of entertainment. Because that way, you are watching something negative, but you're getting in a different context, aren't you?
Yeah.
So just like you're saying, you know, in the morning, start off in a bright way. Go to bed watching like Frasier or Friends or something, you know what I mean? Something comedic.
See, I'm watching Top Boy at the moment.
Oh,
probably,
listen.
It's boss though, by the way.
Yeah, I never watched the first time round. Watched it Saturday. My wife fell asleep. I watched like 3 episodes.
Have you gone back to the first one though?
No, but I will do.
Okay.
You're watching the second
The new one.
Right, okay.
I had
It's
to.
produced by Drake.
Yeah.
I had to watch Frasier because I was watching it. It was daft. I was like, so like 1:30 Saturday morning, and as if you'd have seen me, I'm watching Frasier Christmas special. Love that show, by the way.
Frasier's boss,
Yeah.
by the way. It's probably one of my
Never seen it.
not Sopranos and The Wire up there.
Yeah.
But then Frasier on a different level is like unbelievable.
Well, I like, you know, because sometimes I look at him and think, oh, I want a radio show now and be like Frasier. I'm listening. So if anyone's watching, so that's what I watch. But yeah, it's gritty, isn't it? Top Boy.
Top Boy's boss. I watched it years ago. It's weird, you know, because I watched it a few years ago, but it was on Channel 4. It was out like 2011, 2012. Because I'm like a big fan of Kano, anyway, as a rapper.
Is he the main lad, isn't it?
There's 2 main lads. He plays Sully.
Ashley Walters.
The other lad's Ashley Walters, who was
Right.
in So Solid Crew.
Right, okay.
It shows how good actors they are now, because I don't even think of him as Kano anymore, even though I love Kano. That shows how good he is, by the way. But yeah, and I've gone back to watch it now. We watched The Summer House season 1 and 2, only 4 episodes each season. Excellent.
Yeah.
Channel 4 cancelled it. Drake was a big fan and went and spoke to Netflix about it, and it's we're in that one now, the new one. It's excellent.
Do you know what?
So good.
You bring a very, very valid point up, because like the other one that everyone's watching at the minute is Power. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mad the other night. See the other night?
No,
Won't
I'm
ruin it for the
I'm
viewers.
well
Oh,
behind
are ya?
it. Yeah, I'm playing catch up.
Gets better, mate. Gets better. But like, if you think back when you so my kids now, toddlers. My youngest Joe, he loves watching this kids cartoon called Bing about a black rabbit. Yeah, and he loves Mickey Mouse. Max is a little bit older. He's 3 and he likes stuff like Sonic and stuff like that. Oscar's a bit older. He's 5. He's starting to get into footy. So the first thing our mum and dads do is read stories to us. We learn colours, we learn numbers, we learn words.
Cheers, mate.
We get in the playground. We start having our dad's favourite footballer on the back. So thanks, mate. So Oscar's got Gomez on the back of his Everton kit, yeah. Funny enough, my middle son supports Barcelona. Seriously.
Okay.
Might get to a Champions League final eventually, mightn't we, if he supports that. But anyway, as you get older, so you...
Well, he won't have Everton. He's just Barcelona.
Do you know why? It's my own fault, right? I started taking my eldest to boxing training. No, it's okay.
It's interesting me that.
Started taking my eldest to boxing training, and I went to Sports Direct to buy him like just a little training top. And he had this little Barcelona top, which was just like a Barcelona name.
Yeah.
Got it out the bag, gave it to him, and it was too small for him. So I said, "Yeah, Max, do you want this?" "Oh, what's this, Daddy?" "Barcelona." "That's it now." Well, yeah. So he's Barcelona.
To be fair, you probably given him a far happier football life than we've all inherited.
Definitely.
Yeah, do him a favour there, probably.
Yeah. Hopefully he might convert me, you never know. But so the stories, we learn stories from an early age. We go to the playground, we play cowboys and Indians or whatever they're playing in the playground. The girls start like wanting to be like princesses and stuff like that. we get a little bit older, we get to secondary school, and it's, you know, we start playing computer games, and the girls start having like crushes on like singers and stuff, and then we get a bit older and we start reading literature. When we become adults, our stories become soap operas, or they become stuff on Netflix, or they become us gossiping about people, or they become about the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. So one great technique to change how you're feeling is to apply metaphors. Because the brain, this lazy, stupid dog, loves a metaphor. And if you think about the language that people use, I'm just stuck in a hole, I can't get out of it. I feel myself squashed against the wall. I just feel this great pressure I'm carrying around. So if I hear someone say that, I'll say, well, what could you use to take the pressure off? Or what would be the rope to pull you out of the hole? So one form of therapy that I do is hypnosis, where you relax someone to a level where you change things to a metaphor. So like today, I had a client today, and she a business partner screwed her over and left and took loads of customers and loads of bad blood, so she had a little bit of a bad week. So I hypnotised her and I took her to this pier. I was making it up as I go, because the beauty is, because I've seen that many people, I can be reactive to what they need. Took her to this pier, and as she's walking along, I'm describing all the sounds and smells of a old-fashioned family holiday resort. I was thinking like Blackpool, Southport. And I said, halfway up there's a stall with balloons. And you take a balloon and you put in all those negative feelings you've had from the past 2 weeks. So I'm not even, I'm being ambiguous. I'm not saying the feelings from your business. Put them all in this balloon, and you get to the end of the pier and you just let go. And you can see the difference. So this is a person who, when they first sat down, was like, by the time I finished that, woke them up. Like looking at a different person when you wake them up. It's amazing what the brain will do. And that little story, that metaphor. So now that client, if she remembered what happened, can think in her head, oh, something bad's happening here. I'll put it in my red balloon and let it go. So again, what I'm trying to get at is how simple the brain is. And why, like, it's so sad that people get stuck in these vicious thinking cycles. It's crazy, isn't it?
It's because again in that book I was saying about before, what this neuroscientist was saying is that pretty much everything we see or we experience or we witness or we converse with is stored.
Yeah.
The problem is so you say I can't remember something. The problem is retrieval. Everything's in there, but the problem is retrieval.
Yeah.
So what the metaphor he used is that it's imagine a filing cabinet.
Yeah.
And then imagine a room with filing cabinets in it. When you store a memory, it's like just opening the door to the room and just lashing the memory in. It's not in any order. It's not in rows. It's not in alphabetical. It's not in date or whatever. But certain things will make you retrieve that memory. Like what you said before, the very start, smells. Like when you hear a song, you're like, fucking hell, takes you back to that boss holiday from years ago. Yeah. And then you're happy straight away.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously evocative, isn't it?
Well,
do
you know what you should attempt to do? So if you're in a line of work where you meet a lot of different people, so I'm thinking about what you do, and you probably need to react to like the different styles. So say like Everton get beat and you're about to interview Silver.
Yeah.
So if you can link a smell to a person or a feeling to that person, you can quickly get in a state to be in the. So I imagine an interviewing Jurgen Klopp is a lot different than say interviewing Roy Keane after he's managed a team and you've got beat 7-0. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's adapting to that style. Smell is a great one, because if you go to like a care home, a nursing home, and there's people with anxiety and dementia, they might not be able to talk, but you put on a song, Violin, or you get an old soap, it evokes all them old feelings for them, and you remember it all. And that's the thing about the brain. What I would also caveat this with, though, what you've got to remember with science is just a collection of theories, and the brain, it's probably of every organ and muscle and system in the body we know least about. Some examples. How much of your brain do you use?
Isn't it 30%? It's a ridiculously small amount, isn't it?
Well, do you know how they found that out? They took a goat.
Yeah.
A live goat that was alive. Kept shaving fragments of his brain off. And I think it's only 10%, and after 10% died. Because the thing with brains is it's like
No,
Alzheimer's.
you're right, it is 10%. Yeah.
It's like Alzheimer's, right? You can't diagnose someone with Alzheimer's until they're dead. You have to do a biopsy. So that's the thing with brains. We can't cut open your brain now to see how it works. We wait till you're dead. So everything's a bit of scientific theory. And the other thing with science is this. So, like, I deal with a lot of skeptical people, as you can imagine.
Especially with hypnosis, I can
Yeah.
imagine that, yeah. And Reiki, actually.
Reiki, yeah.
I was
Reiki.
going to want to ask you about that.
Yeah. So what I always say to people is this. Yeah, science is great and it's a collection of theories, but, like, I've got 3 kids, yeah. I can't scientifically prove to you I love my kids. There's no scientific test for
Yeah,
love.
where's the metric for that? Like, where's the
Yeah.
provable...
Now, my body might change. My blood pressure might change, especially if they're being naughty. Yeah. But I know I love them. That's more real than me sitting here with you, innit? To me, that's totally more real.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Like, one of my favourite films, that you might laugh, bit of a rom-com, is City of Angels with Nick Cage. Have you ever
Great
seen
film.
it?
Yeah.
And there's a great moment in that where, I can't remember what he's talking about, but he says I think he's talking about faith, and he says to Maggie, the woman in it, he says, close your eyes. She closes her eyes, and he does that to her hand, and he goes, what am I doing? She goes, you're touching my hand, and he goes, can you see it? And she goes, no. How do you know I'm doing it? I can feel it. So I think sometimes feelings are a big thing as well, and especially if you think about, like, conditions like fibromyalgia. So fibromyalgia is like a bit of a psychosomatic illness. It's often caused by stress. So is IBS. Yeah. So it's not something that physically is wrong with you. It's just your mind's
fascinating,
creating
isn't
it. Yeah.
And then the physical symptoms follow suit, like.
Yeah. So like IBS, I had IBS for years. Didn't even realise this. I had IBS for years. Knew I had it. About 3 years after I learned hypnosis, one day I was like, I haven't had IBS for ages. Because it's stress related. So when I learned hypnosis, you practice on each other, I must have released loads of shit that was there in my head.
Yeah.
And it went.
Tell me about Reiki, because, right, so a little bit of a, like, my auntie and uncle both are Reiki practitioners, and I was speaking to, do you remember Jermaine Beckford?
Yeah.
I went and met him and his wife for a feature for the website I work for now, and she was telling me, Laura, she's a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
And it fascinates me, because it's one of those things, it's faith, isn't it? It's an unseen, you can't prove that there's a transfer of heat, but people feel it.
Yeah.
Now, if you Google it, as I'm slavish, I just have to Google everything, and there's a lot of skepticism out there, isn't it? It's pseudoscience, it's nonsense, and they'll say about so many different things. But I've seen my auntie doing it on my mum. My mum said, I can feel heat. And she's not touching me. So is it like a sleight of hand trick? Is it a con? Or is there something more than that? What do you think about
I think that, again, with Reiki, there's no full scientific evidence at the moment for it. There's been some studies that show that things do happen. So if you get an ECG scan of someone before, during and after Reiki, you can see differences.
Yeah.
There's also the scientific fact that every mammal has got a tiny electromagnetic current within inside them.
Yeah.
And there's also fields around, there's energy fields. So the way I look at Reiki is, it is a lot about faith. Yeah, not a religious faith, just faith that you've got a chakra system. Yeah, that energy flows through. But the way to think about Reiki is this: if you imagine that we're all iPhones, and Reiki's Wi-Fi, yeah, and some of us can connect to this Wi-Fi brilliantly, and so we help others get it. But in terms of, like, how to describe it, yeah, it is. I don't see it really as a heal. Like, some people will say it's a healing technique. But totally honest with you, if someone comes to me with a broken leg, I know if I do Reiki on them, they're not going to be able to walk. Yeah, I see it more of like a relaxation.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay.
You clear any negative around them, and maybe it's a placebo. But you know what? I think placebos are good.
Placebo effect's very powerful. Isn't
Because
it?
listen,
very, very
if
powerful.
it makes you feel different. So, but with Reiki, yeah, and you know, there have been some good scientific studies. So let me tell you about this one study. They took a group of different faith healers, yeah. So they had some shamans, some Reiki practitioners, whatever else, and they told them about this clinic for AIDS and HIV. And say they had these 12 Reiki practitioners or whatever healers. They said, right, listen, there's this clinic in another state, yeah, and here's 12 patients who've got AIDS all around the same level, yeah. And what we want you to do is, we want you to send distance healing to them for like 4 weeks. So distance healing is this concept that you can send sort of good vibes to someone.
Yeah.
So they got these 12 people. They didn't tell them what was happening to them, and they monitored them for 4 weeks. But they also monitored 12 other people that weren't getting any healing sent to them. And this is scientific fact. I'll dig out the name of the report and for your viewers, etc. What they found after the 4 weeks was all the people who were getting this healing, their conditions either stayed the same or their quality of life slightly improved. Yeah. The control group, the rest of them, 2 of them died. Yeah. All the others, their conditions got worse. Now, these guys didn't know anything that was happening. They were all having the same food. They were having the same living conditions.
They were unaware.
Yeah.
Both sets were unaware they were receiving anything.
But like science is starting to catch up with stuff like this. So one thing I like to say to people who are on plant-based diets is, why are you on a plant-based diet? And to be honest, it's something that I'd probably think about in the future. I can understand health reasons. But some of them will say because of cruelty to animals. And I'll say, all right, okay, what about cruelty to plants? And they'll say, well, plants haven't got a level of consciousness. Plants have got a level of consciousness. It's been scientifically proven. So the guy who invented the lie detector, whatever it's called, I can't remember his name either, right? He's in his office one day, right? And he's watering a plant. And he's thinking, how long does it take from the water to get to the base of the plant to the leaf? I know. I'll look it up to the lie detector machine. Stenograph, I think they're called, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because surely, when the leaf gets it, so he hooks the leaf up, waters it, couple of seconds maybe, I wonder how long it'd take if I pour me coffee in, hot coffee, pours his hot coffee in, thinks, wonder what would happen if I set fire to the leaf, thinks, I wonder what if I set fire to the leaf, thinks it, fucking hell. So he sets up like a clinical experiment where he gets loads of these plants, hooks them up to stenographs, and they just think things, or they'll set fire to one of them, totally unconnected to another plant. That other plant will start doing it, even to the extent of one of them had a hot drink, and it said he had too much. There was too much liquid in it, and he went to pour it down the sink. And as he's pouring it down the sink, all the machines are going off, and they're thinking, "But we're pouring it down the sink. There's mold in the sink."
What?
So that's where science is getting to, that level. Crazy, innit?
Crazy.
So to go back to Reiki, yeah, you know, it's a really nice personal experience. And another thing with Reiki is, it's like there's a fella who goes into Liverpool FC and does Reiki. Most of the boxers who've been to see me and the Premiership footballers, I've give them Reiki, and it's a nice sort of it's just a nice experience.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
There's a lot to be said for that, isn't it?
And for people with anxiety, it's really good. It's like a bit of a release.
Do you find that, you know, obviously with your day job, as a friend, as a husband or boyfriend, or as a brother, sister, son, do you find that like people lean on you a lot? Are you, or ask it all the time, try and offload the problems on you so your day job blares? Is it difficult when you're someone who like helps and heals people?
Yeah, I think though you're either naturally one of them people or you're not. Like for some reason that my wife laughs because I'm that person that I'll be the person who gets stuck in a lift, or like on the way here. Yeah, I was late.
You were telling us when you go on
because I'm the person who. Totally, I'm the person who's walking past the lava building of all bloody buildings, and some American fella stops and he goes, hey, excuse me, what's that building there, sir? Oh, that's a lava building. I give him a little bit of a history of Liverpool, you know what I mean? So I've always naturally, for some reason, those people have come to me who need a bit of help. My wife laughs because once I went to Liverpool Museum with my dad, and my dad's like a bit different than me. Like if someone asked him the time, you're like, as we get out, there's this fella, and like massive fella, really morbidly obese in a wheelchair. Can you push me up the hill? Fucking, you know the hill where the museum is? Yeah. Well, I told my wife, she's like, only that could happen to you. So, in terms of like, does it happen now? It does, but I'll tell you what, it does happen now, which is funny. Some people who know that I can do hypnosis are a bit scared of me and won't look at me in the eye.
Really?
Yeah.
What they'll think you'd be having? Like, yeah.
So, and you know that, and I'll play on that sometimes, which is quite funny. But you know what? In terms of, it wouldn't bother me. Where I find it quite hard though is, say I've got friends who needs help, and so you know, to come and see me for a session, there's a price for it, and ethically I'm like,
that must be hard.
I think also I've got a friend who's studying to do counselling at the moment, and he was saying that counsellors have to have a set amount of counselling themselves, because people are constantly offloading to them. They have to offload to somebody else. So when you're having a day where you wake up and you've got, a couple of red letters through the door or whatever, or just any kind of problems yourself, who do you go to, or have you got mechanisms now from the knowledge that you've built up to be able to not have to offload and just deal with it yourself?
I'm lucky in the fact that I have developed these mechanisms, and there's a famous thinker called Edward de Bono, and he's come with this thing called lateral thinking. One of the themes of lateral thinking is the 6 thinking hats. So when I worked in Shop Direct, I did project methodology, and there's a project methodology called Lean Six Sigma, which is fantastic. It's used in production lines. It's all about eliminating waste. But I use that now in the context of using it for personal development, for self-help with people. So one of the things that De Bono came up with along those lines is 6 thinking hats, which is this concept of, say we're building a skyscraper, and we've got different roles, different hats. I am customer experience, you are health and safety, and you're finance. So I say, look, we're building this skyscraper, it's got to be 100 floors because the customers will love it. And you say, oh, well, health and safety, anything higher than 50 is a danger to the public. And you say, well, finance-wise, we can only afford 2 floors. So if you applied that to your life, so my hats are this: I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother, whatever, I'm a friend, but I'm a therapist, I'm a psychologist. So if I'm having a fucking day from hell, which everyone has, I just think, well, hang on, I've got to put my hat on now, I'm in work. And I think the level that I'm getting to is this, which I implore anyone to get to, is this. Say you're on a diet and you have a fucking piece of chocolate at 10 o'clock in the morning because it's someone's birthday in work. Yeah. Don't suddenly think, oh, fuck it, I'm going to Mackey's on my dinner thing. Great, I've had the chocolate out the way now, I'm going to eat well. So if something bad happens to me in the day, I see it as a bad moment, not a bad day.
It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
But it's true, isn't it?
Such a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Why dwell on it?
If me and my wife are on a diet, say if we used to smash low carbs, so it was Atkins at first, then we realised it was really bad for your heart. It was like South Beach was a modified version of Atkins, basically low carb. And if we ended up having some carbs, say we were away, had a little bit of cake or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I've had a little bit of cake now, I need to fucking work harder in the gym. I need to have 0 carbs now for the rest of the week. She would always think, well, I've had a little bit, I may as well just go all out. Yeah. It's the same thing, innit?
Yeah. And the thing with food, right, and cravings, and if you're giving up like an addiction is, I don't really prescribe to the, right, that's it now, nothing else now. I like people to slowly cut down rather than just deny yourself. So the way I do it is have a diary. I plan your 5-day meals and say, do you know what? Thursday, I'm gonna have chips. So then Tuesday afternoon, you're having a bit of a shit day and someone's got like Galaxy Bar or something, or chocolate or Bounties or something, and rather than you have them and go, no, I've got it in me, no, Thursday's my little day for my treat. That's good, because that's goal. We like goals as humans, we like targets, don't we? But yeah, remembering that it's okay to have bad moments. Everyone gets anxiety, everyone gets depression, and it's accepting that. It's a basic human thing. I used to have this stupid belief that I could get rid of people's anxiety. Fucking how thick was I? Because anxiety is a basic human emotion. Because if you haven't got it, then you put your hand in the fire, you walk off a cliff, you walk into a busy road, don't you? What you need to get is the ability to reduce the anxiety or live with it.
Because I've got a few friends who've suffered different degrees of anxiety, and it opened my eyes up, because probably at some point in all our life we might have had what you could badge as hopefully not, but a panic attack, but not knowing what the actual words are, not knowing what a panic attack is. Whereas I've had friends who've suffered from really bad anxiety who've been physically incapacitated, where they feel like there's a huge pressure on the chest and they feel a physical pain. And it comes back to what you're saying there. It's again almost like Reiki, it's a physical sensation caused by something up here, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so anxiety is is it a spectrum like everything else? Is it from being a bit nervous about something to being I can't move here.
I believe so. You know, the spectrum's a great thing, because I was talking to another client yesterday about they thought they had a personality disorder. They thought they had this personality disorder called hypervigilance. And hypervigilance basically is where you're just constantly, And I said it's a bit like OCD. So this table's laid out now. Someone who says they got OCD might go, oh my God, nothing's in a straight line, I need to fix that. That's better, I can relax now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the small end of the spectrum. The far end of the spectrum is like what Gaza had. Has to touch the light bulb about 10 times before it goes out, make sure all the windows are locked. But everything in life...
sportsmen have that, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
Beckham, Johnny Wilkinson.
And you know what? Probably that's why they're so efficient. Yeah. But with these spectrums then, the spectrums can go up and down. So with anxiety as well, that can go up and down. So you know, we spoke a bit before about relative deprivation, the idea of it's easy for them because
yeah.
We do it in a negative way. What's she got to be anxious about? Footballers. What's he got to be anxious about? He's earning 200 grand a week. If I had that much money, I wouldn't be anxious. Wouldn't you? Might be fucking more anxious than you never know.
yeah.
It's true, innit?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You know, if you ever encounter someone who's a massive worrier, because I used to be a massive worrier, imagine if you could change your thoughts and instead of worrying, you use them to create. So instead of focusing on problems, you create, you think about solutions. So again, that's another little hack I do, is if I do find myself worrying about something, it's like, well, fuck off, think about it later. What's good? What have I got to look forward to? Or what good memory have I got from the past? Little stuff like that, you slowly evolve in your brain, aren't you?
The most profound thing, we said this, I think I remember speaking about it with Amelia, but for me personally, I don't know why it was so profound, but it was just something that shook me to my core, was that I used to think that my thoughts were inherently me, until I sort of read, and it just resonates with me, but they're not, just like passing clouds. So you shouldn't really try and define yourself by them,
100%.
because it's about a million different things, but it's not you, is it?
Well, yeah,
And
like...
you can kind of...
sorry to interrupt.
No.
We spoke about Lee Butler before.
Yeah.
He got me onto this thing, which I'd never heard of, the addictive voice, which is, go on, just have one bite, you'll be sound. Or just have a couple of stripes, you'll be all right. Or just eat that chocolate, you'll be fine. The addictive voice. Now, a good NLP technique is this. So sometimes I work with under 18s where their parents will come in with them and the parents will stay there, and it's usually around like teacher or a friend or someone in a friend group. So I'll say to them, so who is it that upsets you or annoys you? And I might be, oh, Mr. Smith, who teaches English. Okay, and do you hear his voice in your head? Yeah. Imagine just getting that version of Mr. Smith out in your hand, making him really small, putting a clown outfit on him, and changing his voice when he talks like this. Suddenly, the effect doesn't affect you anymore, but you can do it with your own voice or whatever voice in your head. Like, go on, just have another pint, or just stay out a bit later, take that voice out, whatever the person looks like, put a tutu on them, make the voice really sexy. It makes you laugh, yeah? It just changes the context. That's a really powerful one. So if you've got anyone who you work with maybe, or who you manage or whatever, who does your fucking head in or stresses you out or is an energy vampire, change their voice in your head as well. It'll change how you react to it.
That was awesome, mate. Well, listen, I think we've done the longest podcast, by the way.
Have we?
Very fitting for number 10.
I could do another hour, number 10.
Yeah.
And
Mate,
Phil,
what
a
an
very
honour.
fitting guest.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
mate.
a lot.
It's been excellent. We'll have
Pleasure,
to have
mate.
you back on as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice
Maybe
one. Good luck with the book.
the 100th one when you get another 90 brilliant
Damn
guests.
straight.
See.
Yeah.
Nice one, mate. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Boss that, mate. Superb.
Enjoy that, yeah?